So this morning, I chose as the subject of my talk and our contemplation, karma and grace. Karma and grace. And I chose this subject because I contemplate it quite a bit. I think about it a lot. And I feel that our spiritual growth and evolution have everything to do with this mysterious law of cause and effect. We learn through actions, don't we? We learn through actions and having responses to our actions. As children, we probably pretty early on learned, as you sow, so shall you reap. But we probably did not receive the deeper yogic teachings on why that is and why it's a blessing, not a curse, right? When we speak of karma, sometimes it's funny how people speak of it. It's kind of like this, people see it as this revengeful law of nature. I saw on Facebook an advertisement for a new restaurant in town. And you go into this restaurant, you sit down, and there's no menus. There's a little sign, it says, "You will get all that you deserve." I read another meme. It said, "I wish you could order karma like flowers and have it delivered." Another one said, "I wish karma had a tip line." So it's funny how we humans, we like to attribute personal traits to universal law. But fortunately, the laws of the universe are not punishing. They're never punishing. There's no stern judge keeping score, right? But there is this benign law. There's this benign law that is essential to life in matter, that propels our evolution, So today I want to offer a different view. It's probably a softer view. It's a more welcoming view of karma as something that is essential and even necessary for our current stage of evolution. In this density of matter, it is not a law in higher states of consciousness, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit. But in my own direct experience in my widest states, I really see karma as this aspect of love. I really see it as love that's become everything and is evolving itself towards greater freedom and expression. One of the most powerful teachers and teachings that I found on karma is by Sri Aurobindo. Anybody familiar with Sri Aurobindo's work? Oh, I really, really love his writing. He's such a he was a spiritual genius. So it almost helps to read Sat Prem's interpretation of Aurobindo because he's just so incredibly genius. But I really love his book, Rebirth and Karma. So he writes in his book, what of suffering and happiness? What of misfortune and prosperity? What of those polarities? These are experiences of the soul in its training. Helps, props, means, disciplines, tests, and ordeals. And he even goes on to say, indeed, suffering may often be regarded rather as a reward to virtue than as punishment for sin, since it turns out to be the greatest help and purifier of the soul struggling to unfold itself. Isn't that strange and different and interesting? I mean, when I think of the things that have been the hardest in my life, they were the fire. I was in the campfire, lost everything in that fire. And the other thing was my mom's passing and just that immensity of grief. But I really do think those two things, I would have to say, they were the greatest help and purifier of my soul. I would say so. I would say I grew the most from those two things. It's a strange mystery. But also, to me, it's kind of a relief to see it that way, because I think sometimes we beat ourselves up if things aren't going well, especially in the new age, new thought, unity world sometimes. we beat ourselves up with that golden metaphysical hammer. Like if things aren't going well, we're doing something wrong, right? We have that view. But I really think this view of Aurobindo's, where we might be in the middle of a great training, it's a much more compassionate view for ourselves. And I think it flips the idea of karma kind of on its head, right? Aurobindo looks at suffering as a reward because he says it turns out to be the greatest help and purifier of the soul struggling to unfold itself. It's interesting. It's like, I have really been contemplating this because, when everything's going well for a while, it can almost get saccharine. It's like there's something when something's harder, I dig deeper, and something just more powerful comes through me and into me, I would say. So yeah, and of course, so much depends on our response to suffering. It's so important we have faith and we have hope and we have trust in life, that we trust this is a benign universe. Because if we don't, yes, we can become hopeless when things are challenging. But karma is a Sanskrit word. It means action. And, in physics, we learn every single action in the universe produces a reaction no matter what. Every single action produces a reaction. Lightning strikes a tree, it catches fire, right? People clap loudly, the musician plays one more song, right? Hint, hint. I love you guys. I love you. I love you. So without there being a reaction to our actions, how would we learn, right? How would we grow our understanding of right and wrong? How would we evolve? We learn about life through acting, right? And having responses to our actions. Mothers and fathers know this well, right? It couldn't be more obvious than when we raise children. So on that note, I have a funny story. When I was about 4 years old, I did something really bad. I got into the medicine cabinet one day. I was alone in the bathroom, and I loved Johnson's baby aspirin because it was orange flavored, and I thought it was candy. It tasted like candy to me, right? So I got in there, and back then they didn't have those caps, those safety caps, right? So I ate the whole bottle. Yeah. Fortunately, there wasn't much in the bottle. So I ate it all, and so a little while later, I was getting really sick, and I just started throwing up, and my mom came in, and she was doting on me, and she was caressing my hair. Oh, sweetie, what's going on? What happened? And did you eat something strange? And I said, no, and so she goes, oh, sweetie, I'm gonna get you an aspirin. She opens the cabinet, and there's the bottle with the lid askew and no aspirin. And she looks at that, and the lid's off. She doesn't leave the lid off. She goes, did you eat this aspirin? And I just looked down and said, no. And she stared at me, that stare, that mother stare, that look right through you. And she goes, you ate this whole bottle of aspirin, didn't you? And I just nodded sheepishly. She was so mad. She was so mad, but she was more worried, right? But I had thrown up a lot, so she figured I was okay. She worked at Johns Hopkins. She was a medic person. So she just put me in my room and punished me, but kept an eye on me. So that, was really an incredibly important lesson, right? The first lesson I learned is don't take more than one baby aspirin. But the second lesson I learned is do not lie to your mom. Do never lie to your mom. It doesn't go well if you do. So I share this story because, you can think of all these things you learned as a child, really important, essential lessons, right? You pull the tail of a cat, you probably get scratched, right? And you learn something important. Don't hurt animals. Don't pull their tail or any other part of their body, right? Parents, loving parents know that sometimes children need challenges. And we need difficulties because that allows us to grow a sense of consequences, of actions and reactions in life. And so, we learn if we're loving and kind. Usually somebody will be loving and kind back to us, hopefully. We learn to share our toys and be generous, right? We learn the golden rule. That's one of the key ethical teachings, one of the first things we learn. There was, in my last church, there was a wonderful poster that had the golden rule in every religion, and they're all said a little bit differently, but it's the same message. It's said a little bit differently. Tell me a version of the golden rule. Somebody, anybody? As you would have them do unto you, right? Not as they do unto you, right? Yes, love those around you as you love yourself. Beautiful. Any other? There's a lot of interpretations. I've found one in Buddhism, hurt not others with that which pains yourself. The Dalai Lama, he says, just at least do no harm. Do no harm. You're doing good if you can do no harm. I actually like Confucianism. It says, is there any one maxim which ought to be acted upon one's whole life? Surely the maxim of loving kindness is such. Do not unto others what you would not they should do unto you. Yeah. So all the world religions have two aspects of teaching. There's the aspect of the mystery, connecting to the mystery. It's kind of the vertical connection or relationship. And then there's this aspect of ethical living, ethical teaching, living in loving kindness. It's kind of this horizontal relationship that we have with everybody else and all other beings on the planet. And the ethical aspect is so important. I mean, think about it. In Christianity, we have the 10 Commandments. In Buddhism, we have the Noble Eightfold Path and the 15 mindfulness trainings and the Four Noble Truths. There's a lot of teachings there. But it's so important that we understand what is unloving, or I like the word better, unskillful, that we understand what is unskillful. And the law of cause and effect allows us to develop our values. So there's a story that Alma used to tell. There was this king, and he had 3 ministers that he called, and he said, now I want you to go out into the countryside and gather a big giant bag of fruits. He gave each one a big giant bag. So the 3 went out, and the one minister thought to himself, well, this is the king's request, so I'm going to get the very best fruits and fill up this bag with the most delicious variety of fresh fruits. The second minister thought to himself, the king is so busy. He's probably not really going to look in this bag, so he just was in a hurry, and he got all the fruits he could gather, some good ones, but some rotten ones. He just wanted to fill that bag and get that job done. So he brings back the bag with half-rotten fruits. And the third minister, he thinks the king is not even going to look inside this bag. So he just goes and grabs all these leaves and all this dusty dirt, and he just fills up the bag so it looks full from the outside. And so all 3 ministers return to the king. And the king says, now, each one of you, you're going to take that bag, and each one of you is going to go into a separate jail for 3 months. And all you can take is what's in that bag. And so, of course, the first man, he lived pretty well on all that fruit. He was fine. The second minister, he lived okay for a while, but then when he started eating the rotten fruit, he started getting really sick. The third minister, well, you can imagine what happened to him. He didn't last too long, eating the dust and the leaves. So it's a teaching. It's a teaching on as you sow, so shall you reap, right? That, we reap our good fruit and we reap our rotten fruit, right? And that our actions are a cause that will in turn bring an effect. And it plays out whether anyone witnesses our actions or not. That's the thing. It promises justice, this law, cause and effect. It promises balance and order. In Hinduism, it's interesting, this doctrine of karma, it's a way that they explain injustice, but it doesn't justify injustice. In other words, we want to live dharmically and do everything we can to see justice outpictured. It's important for us to do that, to correct what is unjust. That's dharma. And we have this innate need for justice. And it's interesting, Aurobindo, I found this one section of his book that was interesting about the timeline of karma, because sometimes I think we would like it to be faster. And he says that the divine has this whole different timeline than we as humans. It's much more expansive. And this is how the universe is not in a hurry, right? Okay, we're at 13.8 billion years now. So the universe takes its time. And he wrote, nature works towards an all-encompassing harmony, but as part of the evolutionary movement, it allows deviations for long periods of time. So, that kind of fits in with the Kali Yuga idea, right? That we have these cycles. And it reminds me of Martin Luther King's statement that the arc of the moral universe is long. It takes a while, but it bends towards justice, So I get from that teaching that justice is inevitable. It just takes longer than we'd like sometimes, right? And part of this relaxed timeline, it kind of insists that you believe in reincarnation or you have some idea of multiple lives, right? Unity's founder, Charles Fillmore, was greatly influenced by Vivekananda, and he believed in reincarnation. Charles Fillmore wrote, "We believe the repeated incarnations of humans to be a merciful provision of our loving Father to the end that all may have the opportunity to attain immortality." So, in this grand scheme, we have time, There's a loved one in my life that my mom and I used to talk about, wish they would evolve faster, and my mom would always say, well, we got eternity, right? I got a song, remind me of eternity. We have time, but it is slower than we'd like at times, right? What matters in life is that we pay attention and that we are teachable. We are teachable and that we don't give up. And I really love that taking one day at a time advice that AA offers, do our best today. Do our best today. That's enough, right? And trust in the divine in us, in the life in us. Listen to the life in us. Be still and listen. And when you're facing hardship, you might consider it could be a blessing in disguise to serve you in becoming more loving, more compassionate, developing more equanimity, and becoming more free, truly. I don't normally quote Roman emperors, but there's a quote from Marcus Aurelius, did I say that right? I love this quote. He said, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Isn't that good? What stands in the way becomes the way. When you're grieving, when you're facing loss and you're grieving, that becomes the way. That becomes the way you're evolving right now. If you're facing a physical illness, the way we learn to love and take care of ourselves and to surrender to what is, that becomes the way. That becomes the spiritual path. And I believe, as Ecclesiastes says there's a purpose for everything under heaven. There's a purpose for everything. And that includes all our challenges, right? I can't help but think of the most inspiring people, the people that we find most inspiring. Jean, I loved when she's just shared all these amazing, famous people. And she started with Helen Keller. And I thought it was amazing she had met Helen Keller. But what an example of, somebody that had faith and trusted life with what she went through. I think of Nelson Mandela, right? He was imprisoned for 27 years for fighting for racism for fighting racism and injustice. And when he got out, he wasn't bitter, he wasn't broken. He became the first Black president of South Africa. And he actually brought forth so much reconciliation and healing and justice and a lot of healing of racism. So I think my point is, let's not feel like we're doing something wrong if we're facing big challenges or small ones, right? Difficulty might even be our good karma. Isn't that interesting to consider? yeah, this law of cause and effect could be love's way of helping us evolve. Now, you might ask me, well, what about the tyrants of our world, right? What about those that are completely lost in ego and they've got this lust for power and they're wreaking havoc on humanity and they're scaring us, right? So Aurobindo has a great quote that speaks to that. He wrote, "In life, one often sees the tyrannical man, a patriarch or a dictator, mercilessly subjugating his fellow men, seemingly unstoppable in his march, ultimately becoming secure and overconfident in his limitless power. Nature lies fallow and unresponsive until the time comes when it arranges the forces that exploit his weaknesses to bring him down swiftly." Ah, I am so with you. It's comforting. And he goes on to explain that it's not punishing. That's the thing. It's not punishing. It's redirecting the soul, because every soul is going to come home to God, to itself, to its true nature. Could take a long time. Could be a lot of switchbacks, right? But but Aurobindo writes, when man lacks compassion for his fellow man, then such an individual may succeed temporarily, but nature brings about his downfall eventually. Nature works towards an all-encompassing harmony. Yeah. So, to me, I interpret that as being compassionate to each other is intrinsic to our survival. It's not just good to be ethical, it's intrinsic to our survival, right? So Aurobindo, he always talks about nature. He's talking about the divine as a high degree of order, compassion, intelligence, and blessing. So the last thing before I close I want to mention is this thing called grace. This thing called grace, because when we talk about karma, we need to mention grace. Because all the great masters and teachers, they express the possibility of grace overcoming physical laws. Grace is beyond physical laws, and karma is not written in stone. Our free will and divine grace can change the course of events. And I think that's powerful to contemplate. There's a lot of teaching he has. I recommend his book, as I said. But what invites grace? What invites grace? You tell me. Surrender. Yes. What else? Gratitude. Yes. Love. Yes. Invocation. Trust. Meditation. Thank you. Who said that? Yes, Claire. What else invites grace? Wonder. I love that. That totally invites grace. Oh, I got chills. Mercy. Thank you. Yes. Yes. Compassion. Empathy. Beautiful. Yogananda, he used to say that meditation is pure cooperation with grace. Isn't that nice? And that to receive grace, the right spirit is an attitude of unconditional love for God, for truth, for love itself, for that I am. So, in closing, I hope this has been thought-provoking and heart-provoking. And what I think want to say most of all is that this universe is made of such infinite love. It is such infinite love. There is no punishment in love ever. And, we have needed guardrails, for certain stages of evolution. And this law of cause and effect is to help us grow and evolve and develop our spiritual nature to its fullest potential. So may all of us and may all our relations be blessed with amazing grace, with trust, with faith in this journey. Let us be willing students. Let us have beginner minds and know that we are ever supported by an incredibly loving universe. Thank you all. Om Shanti.